Hello and welcome again to Cherry Red TV. I'm Ian McNay and my guest today is Gareth Ainsworth. Hi Gareth.
How you doing?
And Gareth has played for many clubs. He's currently the manager of Wycombe Wanderers, and I've brought him along today because he's such an interesting character, and of course he has played also for Wimbledon, he's played for Wycombe, and he's played for a lot of clubs. He was first signed to Blackburn Rovers, he was at Northwich Victoria, Preston North End, Cambridge United, again at Preston, Lincoln, Port Vale, Wimbledon, Walsall on loan shortly, Cardiff City shortly, QPR, and then he came to Wycombe as a player, and then his caretaker manager, and then his manager. So we're going to find out about Gareth, about his life, what makes him tick inside, and also we're going to start with his music career, because he was telling me earlier, when he was younger, he was almost split between, do I become a rock star or do I become a footballer? And you also told me that I didn't know that your mother was a professional singer.
Yeah. It's I mean, you're saying the decision to become a footballer or a rock star is quite it's quite a nice decision, isn't it? You know, I'm not sure I would have made the rock star, but I made the footballer, which was good. But the music was always big. My mum was a singer. She sang with big bands. So in the 60s, these big bands, orchestras on stage, and she would sing it 4,000 or 5,000 people. That's where my dad actually met her at one of her gigs, and got a lot of covers: Dusty Springfield, Brenda Lee, and Cilla Black at the time, Lulu. You know, all these female wonders, singers of the 60s, and yeah, Mum used to be up there singing. And the big story was that shortly after meeting my dad, she got offered a record contract with EMI in London. This girl from Lancashire, and decided to stay in Lancashire, marry my dad, and I think she probably looks back and maybe says what if, but she's never said that, because shortly along we came along, me and my brother.
Yeah, that's her priority.
And that was the priority then. So the music's always been there. So growing up was a musical household, especially with Mum singing away. You know, Dad totally the opposite. Loved his music to go and see gigs and go and watch it, but never would perform. Mum at every opportunity was singing. I think karaoke wasn't really around then, but if it had been, I think she'd have been ripping that up as well.
Yeah. And of course, later on, you did have some bands. You were in a band called APA, is that right?
Yep.
With Trond Anderson and Chris Perry.
Yeah.
And
Wimbledon connections.
Yeah. And then you were in Dog Chewed the Handle. And there's the videos on YouTube. I watched a couple. You're quite punky because people were pogoing in the audience.
Yeah, maybe a bit of drink going on there with the audience there, but we are quite punky. You know, the lead guitarist in Dog Chew the Handle is now with me in the current band, the Cold Blooded Hearts, and his influences were the New York Dolls, the Clash, things like that. So there's a punky spin on a lot of the songs, and we do covers. People love to hear covers, so we try and put our spin on them, and it's all about energy. You know, I think those who see me as a player would probably be able to, without seeing me on stage as a singer, would probably know what I would be like. You know, there's plenty of movement, plenty of energy, plenty of jumping around. I just love that energetic feel that I get up there on the football pitch, wherever. But some great days, and I say it all started at Wimbledon with Trond, still a good friend in Norway, and Chris Perry, who again can be mixed up sometimes with the player Chris Perry. It was actually the groundsman Chris Perry, but great drummer at the time. And
you also told me, which we'll just get this in before we go on more to the football side, that you're also in a tribute band. And you're going to be Michael Hutchinson soon.
I am with a tribute band currently. It's so obviously a one-off thing, but there's a festival over near where I live, a place called Dinton Pastures, a marvellous festival it's called, and it's a tribute band festival. And people have their views on that, but you know, we put it together. We're in excess on the Saturday night, and. So for, I think it's 10 or 11 songs, I'm Michael Hutchins, and he was another one, you know, hero of mine, loved In Excess. It's obviously the era of the 80s and early 90s, and yeah, it's going to be a test. I don't think there'll be too many managers singing in a tribute band a couple of weeks before the season, but it's a passion. You're not going to take it out of me. So yeah, looking forward to that as well.
And you got this nickname Wild Thing, but when did you actually get that?
At Wimbledon.
At Wimbledon,
So, yeah,
of
at
course.
Wimbledon. Kenny Cunningham.
Okay.
He's spawned the nickname for me. It was actually a round of golf we had. Always used to go away on pre-season trips, and we had a round of golf. And I was very, shall we say, wet behind the ears on golf. I'm okay now, but back in those days, I wasn't the greatest player. And I think it came from my swing. I think my first swing hit a golf buggy. Second swing nearly killed one of the, like Carl Lieburn it was, or somebody like that. So Kenny Cunningham just started singing the Wild Thing song, and it kind of stuck. And yeah, it's still today. So that's the nickname, and I think he was quite apt at times.
And Reg Presley, the singer of the Trogs who did that, he was pretty out there too, wasn't he?
Well, he was, yeah, and obviously it's something that stayed with me. I remember at Selhurst Park when it was there, they used to play it on the public address when I'd come on a sub or score a goal. It was fantastic for me. So yeah, it kept it with me, and a bit tamer these days, but there's still that little wild thing in there somewhere.
Absolutely. Well, let's go through your career. Okay, we must go into your Wycombe time now. I get lots about Wycombe in there. So you joined Wycombe 2009.
Yep.
They were League One, so that's the third tier again. And you got off to a pretty good start there too, didn't you?
Yeah, you know, I went on loan from QPR. Gary Waddock was the manager who'd been at QPR. Again, you know, good guy, good influence on me. Faith in me at 36 years old, you know. So to sign a player at 36 at any level, the fans are thinking, is this guy still got it? Luckily, I still had my pace, still had what I'd had. I'd had a year out at QPR, actually reserve team manager, caretaker manager. Okay. And I think that year out actually just gave my body a rest, you know. And I think I was ready to go again that year later. And yeah, when I arrived, I remember beating Millwall in our first game. And we went down that season, but I think the fans had seen enough of me to know that I would be okay, you know. And the following season, I became captain of the club, and we got promoted at the first attempt from the second division to the first. This confuses me, from the fourth tier to the third tier.
Yes.
You know, and I captained the team that season, 12 goals at 37 years old, and again I consider that as one of my good seasons in my career. You know, I think at that age it was difficult. Recovery gets difficult as you get older, but no, it's a great club to play at, and I was glad to be able to captain the team to promotion that year.
Because you were pretty instantly accepted at Wycombe, weren't you, by the fans?
Again, I think the style of play. I think that, you know, it's just that I think people will always go off my energy and always go off my positivity. And again, I went there in a team that was sort of around the bottom of the league, but believed we could stay up, and wanted to give this energy to these fans and these players, and we almost did stay up.
And then Gary Waddock got the sack, didn't he?
Yeah.
It was after the Wimbledon game. We won Wimbledon 1-0.
Yeah. So we got up as when I was captain that year. Then the season after, I didn't play as many games. We came back down again, and then Gary was under pressure. What had happened is when Wycombe were owned by a guy called Steve Hayes, he owned the club. He was putting a lot of money in, and I think it was time that he wanted to get out. And then the trust took over, the fans took over, very much like Wimbledon, Exeter's, and yeah. So the fans took over the club, and we were struggling in League Two a little bit. Results hadn't gone the right way, you know, and it is players. It's always players. Players it's hard for managers, because when the players aren't playing, it's always the manager who goes, you know. But some players, I don't believe the players were performing to their potential, you know. And I remember that day we got beat off. I think Terry Brown had left Wimbledon the week before.
Well, he got the sack, and Simon Bassey was caretaker.
Simon was in charge, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember talking to the fourth official after the game, and he said to me, "That's probably the worst professional game I've ever seen. It wasn't a good game." No. But Wimbledon won, so Wimbledon had been through a bad run as well.
Yeah,
so.
I think Gary was, you know, some of the players weren't doing it for him. Wimbledon had been through this transition. I think Terry was actually in one of the boxes, if I remember rightly.
You're absolutely right. He came with his family. Yes,
I remember that. Yeah,
yes,
so because I do remember him running over and clapping to him, and I know Terry lives near me, great guy, you know, and it was nice touch for that. But the game itself, yeah, wasn't a great game. I think I do remember it. We missed it. We saved the penalty. You had a penalty. We saved the penalty.
I remember the detail.
And then 1-0. 1-0.
It was 1-0. Yes, yeah.
And then after the game, Gary was sacked, by the trust, and on the Monday morning, they put me in charge for caretaker. Obviously, I didn't know how long it would last. The club was in quite a state.
Wasn't very good financial state, was it?
We weren't in a good way, you know. I think the money had been pulled out. You know, rightly, someone was losing a lot of money. They wanted to get out. The trust took over. It was going to take some huge effort to turn this round financially. And that first season on the field, momentum kicked in. We finished mid-table, but we had a lot of debt. We had a hell of a lot of debt.
But how did you feel about Gary getting the sack and you getting off the job, because he'd brought you to the club in the first place?
One mark of the man is. The night he got the sack, he called me and said, "Take the job." What I'm, the mark of Gary Waddock is that he said, "Take the job." He said, "You'll do fantastic," and he knew that. Yeah, of course I would have taken the opportunity, but he always knew what would I be thinking in the back of my head about Gary. So he took that situation out. And just rang me and said, "Look, take it. I won't care. This is
very
football."
Decent, yeah.
So what a decent guy, you know. So I had no qualms in taking the caretaker job on the Monday. We lost our next game actually 3-0 away at Dagenham, but then we started to hit a bit of form, and yeah, comfortable mid-table that season. But like I say, it was.
But how did you handle the thing of being one of the lads playing?
Tough, very tough.
And then you're the one selecting the team.
It was different to QPR because QPR, they knew that. Oh my God, they've just put Gaz in charge because
there's no one else.
No, there's no one else.
Yeah.
At Wycombe, they could have appointed someone. They gave it me, and I mean, at 37, 38 years old, it wasn't a major thing because I'm quite mature there. You know, I'm the oldest in the club by maybe 5 or 6 years. So players like Gary Doherty, the ex-Tottenham player, Matt Bloomfield, has been there a long time. Instantly started respect instantly, and I think that helped. So I've said this previously in interviews. A great amount of respect for those guys, because once your older pros start disrespecting your manager, your younger pros just follow suit and they think it's the right thing to do. So I got instant respect from, but I think I earned that through the way I played, the way I trained every day, the way I did things. I'm hoping that people have always respected the way I've conducted myself professionally. It's not like I've been some sort of idiot off the pitch or would never try in games or would toss training off sometimes. Just, I always did it right. So I think you get that, and when I did need that respect, I got it from those guys. So the younger players seemed to follow suit, and we stayed up, like I said, that season, and then the next season was the.
But what did you actually change? Why did you start to get results where Gary wasn't?
Sometimes it's just a mental change for the boys. You know that it's like the Ranieri Shakespeare thing at Leicester. You know, it's the same players, but it's just that mental change. And as we spoke earlier, the mental side of the game is so big now that I believe that maybe some of the guys were felt pressured by Gary, and maybe couldn't do what Gary was asking, where I maybe stripped it back a little bit, went a little bit more basic. These players could do what Gary was asking, but they were just in a bad time.
But were you doing different things in training?
A little. You want to put your spin down on everything. So yeah, we did change a little bit. I think probably as a player who likes to get the ball forward, I got the ball forward more.
That's your style.
Yeah, that's my forward. That's the way I go. And I've always. The QPR thing was helpful because I did start looking into the coaching side, the football side. I never even envisioned me to be a manager in my mid-20s. I was always going down the route of physio or music, and that's what I wanted to do. I was studying physio a little bit, but I was heavily with the music as well. And so the QPR thing was great timing for me. And again, this fate thing we talk about, it was great time because I started looking into football, looking at how I would do things, and then got the chance to implement it at Wycombe. So I tightened things up a little bit at the back, the way I wanted to, and went forward a bit faster with the ball, and it seemed to work. But the year later, it didn't work too well.
Well, that was quite dramatic, because as you were saying earlier before I interrupted you, you managed to finish that season mid-table.
Yeah.
And you must have had presumably fairly positive
and false
for next season.
False for
false
me.
Hopes,
False hopes. So what had happened is, it probably was the mental side, the relief, a new manager, a new face, a new voice. Yeah, we got results. We finished mid-table. False hope for me then. Really, what I should have done is gone, right, this place needs ripping apart, but I didn't. I kept with a very similar squad, and if I'm honest, I'm much more of a disciplinarian now. I'm much more of a manager figure now than I was then. I was almost a coach who was taking the team now. Now I'm a manager who manages the club.
Yes.
So in my second season in charge, again, we started well. I remember we started the season well. But then from about, I think Christmas time, we picked up minimal amount of points, absolute minimal amount of points. And even teams going down to 10 men, we couldn't beat them. We couldn't break teams down. And then towards the end of the season, nobody saw it coming really, but we dropped into that bottom two with one game to go.
So what was going through your head as this deterioration was going on? You're obviously still giving it your best.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, giving it my all.
Did you stop sleeping at night? How do you handle that personally?
No, you know, I never. I always give my all. I always will. I always give everything, and I expect my players and people around me to give everything. And sometimes that's a fault, because you always judge other people as you are, and you expect it, and it doesn't always happen. But as long as I can look in that mirror every night and know I didn't shaft anyone, I gave everything, and I'm content with what I've done, I can always sleep at night. There's moments, there's stressful moments at work, but I never let it really affect me at home too much. The club was in big disarray. The club was in huge disarray. There was things going on behind the scenes which, I can't really talk about now, but it wasn't great at all. The club was in trouble. I think if we'd have gone down that year, I don't think there would be a Wycombe Wanderers anymore. And it was that serious.
Wow.
So I think that it got to a stage where I actually knew it wasn't just me. I was a big cause, but the whole thing was going wrong, And
did you actually fear for your job? Did you think you might get the sack?
I thought I might get the sack, but I didn't fear for the sack.
Okay.
If you understand that.
No, you were just taking it as something that happened.
I didn't fear it because I don't fear anything. I'm not scared of anything. I always see it as an opportunity. Whatever is an opportunity. I will always go glass half full, no matter what.
Great.
Yeah,
Great.
and so that would have been an opportunity. Yeah, I feared that. I didn't fear, but I knew there could be an opportunity somewhere else for me. That's how I'll put it. But what we did on that final day, and I still can't believe we did it.
Well, let's get it in sequence. So you lost your last home game at home to Bristol Rovers.
So the two teams fighting with us were Northampton and Bristol Rovers, and we played them in concession. The two last home games of the season were Northampton, who beat us, and Bristol Rovers, who beat us. And on the Bristol Rovers game, that put us in the bottom three. Bristol Rovers leapfrogged us, went 3 points above us, invaded the pitch, thinking they'd stayed up, and everyone to the world think they stay up, because this was now us 3 points adrift in the bottom two, relegated under that line that you see in the newspaper. We're under that line now, 3 points to the next team, and we had to win on Saturday away at Torquay, who'd already been relegated. So that was doable, but what wasn't doable was Northampton or Bristol Rovers had to get beat, not draw. They had to get beat, and that was for me one tall order. That was something that you see on the final day of the season when you're watching Sky Sports and you're thinking, wow, that's happened. You never actually think you're going to be in that situation. we were slap bang in the middle of that situation, and we needed something to happen.
So what did you say to the players before the game?
Well, we went down the night before, on the Friday night, and we trained on the Friday. There'd been a few arguments in training on the Friday. I remember this, but we got them down there.
Arguments with you?
Not arguments with them. Arguments a month. Like the tension was high, the pressure was high. There was arguments a month amongst the boys who weren't travelling and who were travelling, and there was all sorts going on that day. It was up to me to, and that week, Ian, I don't know why, I'd barefaced said we were going to stay up. I'd said it all week, and I don't know why. I do know why, because if I'd have said we're not going to, nobody would have believed it.
Yeah.
But I actually started believing myself, and I thought, we're going to do this. We're going to do this week. We had a sponsors dinner on the Tuesday night, where all the sponsors came, the fans who sponsored the shirts, and they all had their opinions, and a lot of them were saying, you know what, we support this club anyway, no matter what. And I just started believing we would do this. So we went down on the Friday. We got there. All the lads go to the dinners and everything. And I went, sleep that night. And on the morning of the game, I remember opening the curtains, and I had the best room I'd had all season for some reason, and looked right out on the sea at Torquay. And the sea was just out like a mill pond. And I don't remember that. I just remember this is calm. You don't see that very often. And I started thinking, you know what, this is the day. This is going to happen today. Checked my phone, went down pre-match, come back up, checked my phone again. Neil Ardley's texted me. So a year earlier, Neil had been in the situation with
Wimbledon were home
Wimbledon
to Fleetwood,
yeah.
and had to win, yes.
Had to win.
Yeah.
And me and Neil were close at Wimbledon. We always had been, you know, some great nights out together. So, and we'd come up together like that. And we were both managers, both very similar times. In fact, you know, I think there's not many months
between.
between
18 days between. Do you know you're the 4th longest serving manager of the 92, and he's the 5th longest.
He's Neil 5th. Yeah. Well, I hope I stay ahead of him. So that means something's happened. But yeah, so we're great pals. And he's texted me, and you know, he didn't have to text me, but he's thought about me that morning. They're safe. You're safe. Wimbledon that day, and so he's texted me, and his words were on the text: "Good luck today, mate. Just tell the lads, just play the game. Don't play the occasion. The occasion will look after itself. Just play the game." And as a manager, team talks. You know, you ask any manager. Sometimes difficult, sometimes easy. That day was going to be difficult. And I thought, that's great, I'm going to use that in my team talk, you know, and I did. And I used it in my team talk, and I said, not one of you start thinking about this occasion, not one of you start, you know, I said, you score an early goal, do you think it's going to get to nothing? Of course it will, with social media nowadays, and we scored an early goal. So I used that in the team talk. We scored an early goal. I'm sure word got around. We scored 2 more. So we're 3-0 up away at Torquay with about 20 minutes to go. And I hear that Colin Daniel from Mansfield has scored against Bristol Rovers, a name that I won't forget. So thank you, Colin. Northampton were beating Oxford at this time, so I knew they were out of the equation, because even a draw wouldn't have been good enough for us. So to win away at Torquay and do what we'd done and still go down would have been harsh. But Mansfield had scored against Bristol Rovers. Now we're 3-0 up, and all I could do was concentrate on the press box then for the last 15 minutes. And I will admit, for the last 15 minutes, I didn't care what happened at Torquay. Yeah. All I cared about was what was happening at Bristol Rovers. And apparently they hit the post, you know, they were close to scoring. And I just remember the final whistle going. Within seconds, both final whistles went, Torquay and Bristol Rovers. And it was just pure elation, I've just got an energy. I watch the footage back of when the final whistle goes, and I am ready to beat Usain Bolt in a 100-metre sprint. I'm telling you, because I was just so elated, and so I sprint on the pitch. I remember my respect as a manager. I walked over to Chris Hargreaves, shook his hand, said all the best to him, because they'd just gone. Yeah. But then, you know, I just went to the fans, and to this day, I look back and think, how did we do that? I believed we did. But belief is one thing. Actually, the process of doing it is another, and I still can't believe we did it. But that was, I think that was a day that saved Wycombe Wanderers. You know, I really do, in more ways than just football status. So the players who played that day, they did fantastic, and everyone connected with the club. You know, that season, we one hell of a season, and then the year later, the new chairman came in.
It's Anthony Howard.
Andrew Howard.
Andrew Howard.
Andrew
sorry.
Howard, yeah. The racing driver, owner of Beach Dean Ice Cream, and he has single-handedly transformed the goings on away from the football at the club. And we sit here today with with the club in good shape. A lot to do with Andrew Howard, but the season he came in was another great ending to that one. You know, the Wembley appearance against Southend. You know, so from staying up at Torquay, we made plenty of changes in the summer. Plenty of changes, which are changes I should have made the summer before, by the way. But we made those changes, and with Andrew coming in.
And I presume you had a bigger budget as well, did you?
Slightly, yeah, not much. Believe me,
Yeah.
you know, we're still in, and to this day we're still in trouble. We're not a club that can spend freely. We're not. You know, you have to count the pennies at Wycombe Wanderers, and you will do for a few more years yet, without a doubt. But if we keep going the same way, we will be in a good place. But yeah, that the Wembley season. I tell you, I won't be surprised if we were bottom 3 budget, bottom 4 budget that season. It just seemed to, all the bad stuff that happened the year before, we seemed to get back. We got referees' decisions, we had sendings off. I had no injuries. We only played 23 players, I think, across the whole season, which is a trait of successful teams. Chelsea this year have only used about 20, low 20s, you know. So it just like no injuries and consistent team selection, and that worked. And at the end of that season, yeah, we were top of the league. We just fell away at the end, but made the playoffs.
But the interesting thing is that you had stability at the top of the club.
Yeah,
And that, as you found at QPR too, it's so important to have that.
Huge, Ian, you know. And I think the boys, they feel that, you know, they know when it's going wrong behind the scenes. They know when it's going right behind the scenes. You know, you do. People try and keep her away from the club. The newspapers are there, the social media is massive now. It's communication levels. People know when things aren't right behind the scenes in football, and it does affect things on the pitch, you know. And I think Leyton Orient, great example, you know, great example. So I think the stability and the long-term aim. The great thing about Andrew is he sits with the players, he talks to the players.
Yeah.
He's not a chairman who is sat on his high pedestal. He's a doer. He was he was in a tractor the other week in a digger, helping dig up the training ground.
Really, yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know, he's hands-on, very successful businessman, but I can see why. So there's this long-term plan off the pitch, and the players know that's there, and that gives them stability, and it makes my job easier on the pitch.
Absolutely. So I wanted to go through the next 2 seasons as well in a little bit of detail. So 2015-16 season, you finished in 13th place. But of course, you played Aston Villa in the 3rd round of the FA Cup.
Yeah, and again, for me as a manager, new territory, you know, to draw a Premier League team in the FA Cup. We had the TV cameras down, and it was a great experience for the boys. A great opportunity for Wycombe Wanderers, and this was after the Wembley experience. We started putting ourselves on the map again, you know, we really did. And so that season, disappointing end. We were top of the league at one stage of the season. In October, I think we were top. Again, you know, with a restricted budget, but the boys we work so hard on the psychological side of things. We have a strong bunch of boys who will fight and scrap for you.
So when you sign a player,
yeah.
You're looking, and I know this is what the old Wimbledon did very much so with Joe Kinnear and Sam Hammond. They always, it was the technical ability of the player,
Yeah, of course.
but also it was
Yeah.
are they going to
It's
fit
huge.
in
It's huge.
with the old Wimbledon?
Absolutely
And
huge,
and this
you
is
know.
what a manager has to do now to make sure, especially when you haven't got the budget like Wycombe had.
Yeah.
You have to make sure the player's going to fit in with the existing group of players and your overall plan.
I think in football, I mean, for 4.5 years as a manager, recruitment is so big in football. Honestly, I believe that the top coaches in the world they can't do it without good players. You've got to recruit good players. You really do. Recruitment's huge. So you get that wrong, I think you're in trouble, is my belief. So looking into recruitment was a big drive of us. I've got a Richard Dobson, my assistant. We go into the psychological side of things, and as I said earlier, dealing with success, dealing with failure. Success, you can't get too high, you can't get too low. Nowadays in society, especially some of these young kids that have come through, how do they deal with adversity? How do they deal with something that's not gone right for them on the football pitch? You've got to learn quick. You've got to really learn quick. You've got to be resilient. You've got to be mentally strong. All these things, my opinion now, are coming above the technical and physical. They're all physical. They're all technical. The diets, we spoke earlier about Arsene Wenger coming in and changing everything in the early 90s. We're seeing the rewards of that now with the physical specimens in football and the technique that these players have got. They're fantastic. What separates them, in my opinion, is the mind, the mental side of things, which is crazy because 30 years ago when I started out, it was the physical and the technique that would separate you.
But you had the mind, though.
But I had the mind, but I was one of the few who got through with the mind. Now, there's only a few get through with the technical and the physical.
Yes.
It's the mind, honestly, that I believe is the biggest thing you have to... As a manager, we're counsellors, we're marriage counsellors, we're welfare officers, we do so much more than just football. If you said your job's just coaching and just on a Saturday, we would take that all day. There's so much more that goes into it, and until you've sat in the chair, it's difficult to explain actually how much goes into it all. And so the psychological recruitment for us has to be spot on. And that season, we nearly went. That's the decision I made in that summer with Richard, to bring in mentally strong, resilient people, still technical, still physical, but mentally strong. I wanted a culture. I wanted to develop this culture, this ethos at Wycombe Wanderers, that no big timers. I don't want any of that. It doesn't fit with me. It doesn't fit with. I don't resonate with any of that. They've got to be a team. They've got to be together in everything they do. Would I stand next to this guy in the trenches? Would he be there for me? Has he got my back? And that's really important for me. And that's why that's our drive on recruitment now.
So when you signed a player like Alfie Mawson, who went on to Swansea, did you think there would be a potential with him there?
Alfie was on loan from Brentford. Alfie was a crazy one because Alfie was not even in the plans until a week before the season when we lost Gary Doherty at Barnet in a pre-season friendly. Alfie came in, and if I'm being totally honest, I didn't know a great deal about Alfie until we started playing him and developing him as a player.
Yeah.
But he's got that. He's got this up here. You know, Alfie Mawson is a humble, resilient. He's a great player, and he's at the top level for a reason. You know, but there's some good examples we have at Wycombe. You know, the man we got from Wimbledon, Akinfenwa. You know,
Bayo Akinfenwa, what a legend he is.
What a character. You know, mental toughness. Wow, he's up there with the best. Would you have him in the trenches with you? Of course you would. Yeah. And these are the things that fit with our recruitment. So that season we nearly went. This was a drive, and I think from the 3 seasons after that, I think we've justified who we've brought in and what we've done. So back to the cup run, it was a great experience. You know, the Aston Villa. It's my first time as a manager to get a Premier League tie, and it was the highlight of that season until the season after, which is this current season we've just ended. Yeah.
So let's talk about this season then, because you had the very high-profile Tottenham game, and was it 3-1 up Wycombe were at one time?
Thanks for reminding me. Yeah.
No, I'm
on the 83rd minute. Yeah.
And then of course it was 4-3 in the end, but it was still a fantastic performance. But did you feel it impacted the league performance afterwards?
Without a shadow of a doubt, you know, yeah. So we went into the Tottenham game, we're flying, the league form was good. That game was much more of a high than people give it credit for. The whole club, Tottenham Hotspur away, you know, one of the last seasons at White Hart Lane. Just to be there was a high. Never mind to do what we did, you know, And as you say, to 3-1 up in the 83rd minute, I think 3-2 up in the 83rd minute we went with Gary Thompson's header, and I turned to my assistant and said, I'm hoping that might be good enough for a replay. Little was I to know that they would score in the 97th minute when only 96 were made available by the fourth official, by the way. Yeah. But it was such a high that day. It was, and it took so much out of us mentally and physically. And because we've recruited so high on the mental side of games, that game really took it out of us mentally. Mentally, we were shattered. And if I had it over again, I'd change things. I can't say too much because we have plans if that happens again. But the fixture build-up after that was...
I know you're going to play, aren't you, next time?
Chaotic. I should have played this time. The fixture build-up was chaotic after that. It was really chaotic, and we had Tuesday, Saturday, Tuesday. And as a player, I used to love that. You're playing, no training, playing. Yeah. As a manager, I hate it. As a manager, wow, recovery and little knocks to key players and preparation time for games. It's really tough. So, we went 5 games on a losing streak for 5 games after that game, and that really derailed what looking like a playoff season again. So and we almost made it.
You're only, I think,
a point
and 2 places away.
Yeah, a point. So we finished 9th, and 7th place was a point away. And we can all go back and say that point was there or that point was there, but every manager can do that. I consider it again a successful season for us.
You in the Checkatrade Trophy, you got to the semi-final.
The semi-final,
so that was another great cup run.
Which again was something special to Wycombe, something special for me, and I say I do wake up every day thinking I'm a lucky guy, and to experience what I get to experience, not everyone does, and long may that continue.
Well, let's go for another 4 or 5 minutes, and that'll be an hour and a half, which is probably as much as people are going to be watched, to be honest.
They've probably switched off by now. Yeah.
No, not everybody. So, what's your kind of plan? So you've got the stability now with the chairman. You feel very happy with the structure in the club.
Well, what's happening at Wycombe is
he's doubled your wage budget. Is that right?
Totally. Yeah. The chairman, Andrew Howard, is stepping down now this season, and he's becoming sporting director. So he wants to now come to the football side of things, which I think is fantastic.
Good.
He'll be more involved in that. Trevor Stroud, who's chairman of the trust, is now becoming chairman of the football club. Another great guy, and the club's in good hands, and with the backing of Trevor and Andrew on the sporting side, I think we've got a good chance. The budget, again, it's always tough, The Premier League is pulling that far away from the bottom that we do really struggle, at the bottom leagues and League Twos and some the bottom end of League One, money, pennies count. It's really important to spend your pennies right. So the biggest budget teams in League Two will always be at the top end, believe me, and I think it's been proved this year. What I think we've got is, again, we've got this culture, this spirit. We'll have a slight increase, of course we will, but I'm happy for the first time, as opposed to 3 years ago when I changed 10 players, 12 players. I've got 19 under contract. I'm very happy with what we have. We have no youth team, we have no reserve team at Wycombe. We just have a first team, and that is it. We have nothing else. So I'm very happy with the position we're in the summer. We need 1 or 2 players. I know what those positions are, and I'm actively out there. But it's a massive game of poker at the minute. Every manager cannot show their hand, or do they fold early? Do they chuck in early? It's a crazy game at the moment this summer, and being one of the lower clubs, it's even tougher for us, So we want to go one better, but we also don't want to put expectation too high. We know what we are at Wycombe Wanderers. We're this club that's a family club. Its history is great, but it's only 25 years in the league, or whatever. It's relatively a new club in the league. We want to get promoted.
Yeah.
That's what we want to do, but expectation has got to be balanced off with that. We're not going to go.
You have to overperform.
We always have to overperform,
yeah.
And I don't mind doing that.
Yeah,
I don't mind doing that. We can
Yeah.
do that. I know we can do that. is how many teams overperform with us, because I know we can do that. So, you know, the likes of Blackpool and Exeter maybe, you know, they give me inspiration. You know, they were up there. They weren't the biggest clubs.
Blackpool
in the
are up,
playoffs.
Exeter, and obviously in League Two again next season. Yeah.
I mean, but they were the playoff final, both of them. You know, so
Yeah.
you're not a million miles away from those clubs. We can do this, but it's going to take hard work again and a little bit of luck.
And the interesting thing is that I mentioned earlier, you're the fourth longest serving manager in the Football League and the Premier League together, 92 clubs. Neil Ardley at Wimbledon's the fifth longest, and the Exeter manager, Paul Tisdale, is the third longest.
Second.
Second.
The third is
more
League Two. Jim Bentley, yeah.
Jim.
Yeah.
So, but it means that 3 out of the top 5 longest serving managers are fan-owned clubs.
And also League Two. Yeah, that's true, you know. Exeter, Wimbledon and Wycombe.
Wimbledon obviously League One, but
Yeah.
3 out of the 5 are fan-owned clubs, and there's only 4 now fan-owned clubs left in the Football League because Portsmouth are now getting taken over. There's only Newport County that are left. So there's something about this fan-owned club.
Yeah, of course.
That there's loyalty, the fans own the club, and it works over time because they stay with things.
It definitely works over time. I think the Wimbledon model's a fantastic model, you know. I know they had to start really low down, but never going above your means is really important. And I think that it's a good lesson to be learned. Exeter again consistently churn out good kids from their academy and perform consistently. And I'm hoping one day Wycombe Wanderers can be a profitable club, but also still be fan-owned and still be proud of that.
Gareth, I've really enjoyed this.
Yeah, it's
and
been great.
we've had a good chat over your whole career, and obviously focus more on Wimbledon and obviously Wycombe. But I think there's a lot in there that is very interesting, and thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks very much.
And thank you for watching Cherry Red TV again, and I hope we see you again soon. Goodbye.